everyone, Christina here. We are going to talk about cell activators today. So welcome in everyone. Welcome to my channel, One Creative Direction. Glad to help any artists out there just starting out, have questions, struggling. Happy to help. So like I said, we're going to talk about cell activators today. And I have put out quite a few videos over the last couple of years related to cell activators, cell activator recipes, etc. For the longest time, if you go back, you will see that I use Arissa Rue. I used her recipe forever. It was what I thought mimicked Australian floetrol for cell activator really well. I've never really used Australian floetrol. I've always tried to get around that extra cost because it is so expensive. So I'm always like trying to change that up and find something that works really, really well. So I think I finally adjusted the recipe to a point where I feel like it's successful. So a couple of months ago, I did some videos on some of the testing that I was doing using Penetrol as part of the cell activator recipe. So I began this journey of trying to perfect that recipe because at the beginning of that, I liked the result, but I felt like the lacing didn't hold its shape and it broke up. Here's a perfect example. So this was the prior round of testing. This is, I believe, Winsor Newton. So this was using I believe the GAC 800. I can't remember. Basically GAC 800, the paint and water and Penetrol. So I've done a few tests since then, but you can see what I mean. I don't feel like it's horrible. I haven't top coated it yet. You can see how shiny my paints are. But I don't really care for, I feel like the lacing kind of broke up and it didn't hold its shape the way that I like for it to hold its shape. Now the true test for me is doing something bigger than a tile, and this wasn't huge. I think this is like a 6x6 maybe. And it's not much bigger than a tile, but it was bigger, and it did show me that this was still breaking up. Does it look horrible? No. I actually kind of like it. I love the colors and everything, but I was still wanted to improve that. So, and I'm going to show at the end of the video, I am going to show all of pictures of my testing so you can see the progression and the improvement. Okay. So my latest recipe, I think I've got it perfected. So I'm going to tell you what it consists of. So I've already tested this with, initially, if you remember back in my other videos, I tested with 3 different brands of paint: Golden, Winsor Newton, and Amsterdam. Now, I've always, like I said, used Arissa Ruse, and her recipes really only worked primarily with the Artist Loft large bottles, the flow acrylic. And black was the only one that I could get to work on a consistent basis. But again, you had to refresh it all the time if it sat for longer than a day or two, because it had the wood conditioner in it. If it sat longer than a day or two, then it was pretty much worthless, and you had to either remake it or refresh it. So I was constantly throwing away cell activators. Okay, and then I did try some of the Winsor and Newton paints with that particular recipe, and they worked really well. But again, you have to refresh it all the time. So I was on this journey to find something that you didn't have to do that. So when I saw people messing around with Penetrol, I'm like, hey, I'm going to try that. So here's where I ended up. Still testing with Winsor Newton and Golden. I have not yet tested these on Amsterdam, and I will get to that. But primarily, I love Winsor Newton for a cell activator. I think that the results that it produces are really good. And Golden is kind of up there for me next to that. I feel like with Winsor Newton and Golden, you can swipe or blow with this recipe. And when you get into the Amsterdam, I feel like this recipe or the previous versions, you couldn't swipe with it. So I like to be able to do both. I don't want like one for one and one for the other. So I really want an all around good one. So I'm okay if I don't use Amsterdam for a cell activator. I have plenty of Winsor Newton and plenty of Golden. So I'm good there. But just wanted to kind of show you that or go through that. Okay, so I'm going to show you the results. These first 4 samples, I'm going to show you using white Winsor Newton and black Winsor Newton. So let me see if I can get a good picture. I might have to turn my ring light off. Oh, goodness gracious. Let me see if I can turn this down so we don't have so much of a glare. There, that's a little bit better. Okay, so these are Winsor Newton white, okay? Using the new recipe configuration. I thought those turned out really, really well. And then these, and don't mind my colors, this is way far out of my comfort level for color palette. Don't ask me why I put all these together, but this is the black. I thought they turned out pretty good. I like the lacing. They held really well. So again, black Winsor & Newton, or Mars Black to be specific. I borrowed the large containers of it, so. Okay, so moving on. So from there, I decided to try the Golden, same recipe, just different paint. Now, the only thing with the mixing is you had to put a little bit more water into this because, you know, if you've ever used Golden, you know that they're super thick body, where the Winsor & Newton is more of a creamy and maybe doesn't require as much water. So again, great results, right? The lacing looks good. All right, so that's the white Golden. And these are the black Golden. So I tried to keep the same colors so we could do a you know, apples to apples comparison. I feel like I got some really crazy like lacing and different colored cells with this. Not so much in this one, but a little bit. I think if I had my pick, I don't know which one I would take because I really like these cells on this one. But I also really like the Winsor & Newton. So I decided to do another color palette, just testing. So I did this color palette. And this was the Golden as well. So again, really, really good lacing there, right? I thought the lacing turned out really well. So from here, since my cells seem to be, I feel like a lot more rounded and better structured than the prior recipe trials, I decided to do a larger canvas. And it's still somewhat wet. So I'm going to show you anyway because I feel like it's not going to change anymore because there's just a little bit of moisture in the center. So like I always say, the true test is in the larger because I feel like the larger canvases I went with those other attempts, the more lost the cells became, the lacing. But I feel like this is a home run. As you can see, it stayed together really well. The cells still look the same as they did when it was wet, which is where I usually lost it, from wet to dry with all the previous recipes. You can see the lacing structure has not broken up like it did in the prior ones. So super, super happy with this. Still working on my blowouts, so don't judge. But yeah, I thought this was spectacular. So I'm looking forward to creating more testing. I'll start using the Amsterdam paints to see how those work with this recipe. I may put out another video, but please feel free. If you're really big on using Amsterdam paints for your cell activators, please feel free to use this recipe and test. So there's not any like really hard to find ingredients here. It's pretty simple, and I have it written down, and hopefully I can read this without putting my glasses on. So, and you can cut this in half if you want to try it out. You don't have to do like the full, because it does create quite a bit, at least if you're just doing, you know, a few things. So I started out with 12 millimeters of paint, and I kind of perfected this recipe with the Winsor Newton. And like I mentioned, I did have to put a little more water, and a little more just of the liquidy ingredients in the golden. But base recipe, 12 millimeters of paint, 4 milliliters of the golden color pouring medium. So I get the gloss, so color pouring medium gloss by Golden. It is kind of their replacement for GAC. They didn't market that very well, so they re-released it. It's almost the same thing. I tested GAC 800 first. I tested GAC 900, and then I went to this, and I found the results with this to be much better. So it is a little bit different, but from what I understand from the company, there's not a lot of difference between those two. And then from there, I put in 3 millimeters of just plain floetrol. And then I put 2 milliliters of water. So what I found with my prior versions was I thought putting too much water in was contributing to the cells not keeping their shape. So I reduced the water significantly. I think prior I was putting like 8 millimeters of water in. So I was trying to avoid putting too much water in. Like I said, with Golden, I did put a little bit. I would say it's probably closer to 3 or 4. But I did add a little bit more of the Color PM and the Flood. I mean, not a lot. I like my Cell Activators on the thinner side, because I don't like a big thick glob in the center. I like it to all be spread out. So again, 2 millimeters of water, and then 4 drops of Penetrol. So if you're going to cut that in half, then you'd put half of all of those. And I will put this recipe down in the description box. Always, always check the description box in my videos, because if I'm talking about a recipe, I will typically put it down there. But if I forget, please, please, please send me a message. I have been known to forget in my old age. So thank you for coming along. Please give this a try. Let me know how it works for you. Let me know if you used this particular recipe with another brand of paint that I haven't already tested. That would be really good to know. But always pay attention when you're doing blooms, because I do this. I pay attention to what paints I lay down and what the last one is and how my Cell Activator reacts with that last paint. And I will tell you, in my experience, if I use any of the Modern Masters metallics, if I lay one of these down on the very last before I put the Cell Activator on, these will give you beautiful cells. Another one is Deco Art Extreme Sheen. All of those that I've used so far, I haven't tried every single color because I do have a lot of them. But in my experience, those will also, I think, like make your cells look a lot different than if you just put a regular like opaque paint down. And then what's the other one? Unicorn Spit has some really cool reactions with Cell Activators when you put it on top. And that's all I can think of right now off the top of my head. But just pay attention when you're doing your blooms to what paint you put down last, right? And try to notice the difference. Like this, the last paint I put down was Unicorn Spit. And it always, with Winsor Newton paint, it always gives you those really cool cells, right? And I feel like with Golden, you get more of a rounded cell. but it did have some really cool reactions there, right? A little bit different from Winsor Newton to Golden, but still really, really nice. So that's what I do. I always try to notice, like, okay, how did I layer my paints on there and what is giving me that reaction? I try not to end with a pigment because I feel like the pigments and the Cell Activator, when you lay them together, I don't feel like you get a good reaction if you would put the Cell Activator or the pigments lower in your stack, your color stack. I feel like they work a lot better. So just a couple things to note, but if you're like me, I pay attention to, you know, when I'm layering my paints and stuff, like what works and what doesn't work. So yeah, thank you for joining me, everyone. I really appreciate it. Please reach out if you have any questions. I would really, really love to hear and see your results from this. If you try it, like I said, these are easily easily available ingredients. I mean, water, flood, Golden, and Penetrol. You can find all of those in the United States. I can't speak for anywhere outside of the US, but yeah, I hope everybody gets to try it out. I'd love to see and hear about the results, and catch all my other videos on Cell Activators. I do quite a few on blooms. So yeah. Okay guys, just a quick update. I wanted to go through some of these samples from my previous testing. So just bear with me as I go through these. So these are the, from the top left, you can see the description below. That's the old mixture. So I was testing multiple things. I was testing longevity. So this mixture had been sitting for well over a month, probably 6 or 7 weeks. So when it says old, that's what it means. That means it wasn't made fresh for that particular test that day. So it had been sitting. So that was one of the things, if you remember in the beginning, that I talked about being a challenge and constantly having to update my Cell Activator. So the top one is the old Winsor and Newton, trying to do a swipe. And then the new Winsor and Newton, and that top one was with the GAC 800. And also keep that in mind as I'm going through these. The only thing I changed throughout each one of these versions of the Cell Activator recipe is that pouring medium, whether it was GAC 800, GAC 900, or that golden pouring medium. So I started with the 800, so that's the top left. The next one down is the Winsor Newton paint with the golden pouring medium, and that also was a swipe, so much better. The bottom one is a blowout with Winsor and Newton plus the color PM. So that's a win-win in my book because it does both a blowout and a swipe. Okay, so going up to the top right-hand corner, that is the golden paint with GAC 900 in the Cell Activator recipe, doing a blowout. Not so bad. And then the golden, same recipe, doing a swipe right underneath that one. So again, not so bad, but those are with the golden 900. And so the bottom right hand corner is the golden paint with the golden pouring medium, and that's a swipe. I didn't do a blowout because the blowout worked perfectly before, so we just went with that. All right, so moving on to these results, and these were after I did those initial ones, and I'm going to try to hold this as steady as I can. This isn't the way that I wanted to do this, but I couldn't get a clear picture in the video to be able to do it, so I'm filming it off my laptop. So the top right or top left is the Winsor & Newton white paint with the golden PM in the recipe, and that's doing a blowout. Spectacular results. And then right below that is the old mixture, and it's kind of hard to see. It does actually look better than it's portraying here. That's the old
mixture of the golden and the GAC. Okay, so that's the black golden paint with the GAC 800. Going up to the center top, that's also the old mixture. That's with the Winsor Newton white paint and the GAC 800 on a swipe. So again, just testing longevity initially with that. Right below that one, center bottom is the golden paint with the GAC 900 and a blowout. Not too bad, wasn't super impressed. And then going up to the top right was the Winsor Newton mixed new with the golden pouring medium. Again, that was a swipe. Again, the swipes with that look amazing. Golden on the bottom right hand corner is the golden black paint with the golden pouring medium. That was a blowout, and the colors don't come across in the picture of the video very well, so please forgive me. I had other ones that looked much better. So yeah, to me, moving forward with the Winsor Newton and the golden paints, using the pouring medium from golden as the key ingredient in there, I think is the best way to go. So again, check the description box below for the full recipe. And as always, reach out if you have any questions or need any help or want to share your results with other paint brands. I would love to see those. So I will catch you guys on the next video. Thanks. Bye.